You're listening to In the Balance, an Iowa Judicial Branch podcast. Welcome back. This week we are dedicating our time to the first woman attorney in not only Iowa, but also the nation, Arabella Babb Mansfield, affectionately known as Belle. Arabella Babb was born May 23, 1846 in Des Moines County, Iowa. However, not much else is written about Belle's early life. In 1860, at the age of 14, she and her family relocated to Mount Pleasant, Iowa after the passing of her father. Belle excelled in academics, graduating from Iowa Wesleyan College at the age of 20 in 1866, and then going on to study law at her brother's law office while also taking up teaching duties. When she was not studying for the bar exam, she taught English, political science, and history at Simpson College in Indianola. There she met her soon-to-be husband, John Mansfield. They married in 1868. After their marriage, Belle returned to her alma mater at Iowa Wesleyan, this time to teach English and history. In the year 1869, Belle sat for and passed the Iowa bar exam, despite the Iowa Code limiting the test to, quote, any white male person, unquote. Upon appeal, the court ruled, quote, the affirmative declaration that male persons may be admitted is not an implied denial to the right of females, unquote. Judge Francis Springer officially certified Arabella Babb Mansfield to the Iowa bar at the Henry County Courthouse in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, her hometown. While achieving a feat as important as becoming the first woman admitted to the Iowa or any state bar, Belle was not finished with her schooling. She went on to earn her master's degree in 1870 and her LLB in 1872. She became active in the women's suffrage movement during this time as well, and chaired the first Iowa Suffrage Association State Convention in 1870, held again in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. Together with her husband, Belle moved to Indiana to teach at Asbury College, now DePaul University. She taught history, music history, and aesthetics. During her time as a professor, she and her husband, John, took time to travel the globe as well. Together, they traveled to England, France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Belgium, Austria, and Scotland. She attended classes and observed different courts of law during her travels as well. In 1884, hard times fell on the Mansfields when John suffered a nervous breakdown and was sent to recuperate in California. During this time, Belle took on the responsibility of supporting herself and paying her husband's medical expenses. She stepped away from her teaching duties at Asbury College and began touring the country on a lecture circuit. She also served as the principal for Mount Pleasant High School from 1884 to 1885, and taught again at Iowa Wesleyan from 1885 to 1886. After her husband's death in 1886, Belle returned to Asbury College to teach. She would later serve as Dean of the School of Arts beginning in 1893 and Dean of the School of Music beginning in 1894. She held to her duties until her passing in 1911 at the age of 65. She was laid to rest at Forest Home Cemetery in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. To honor her legacy, the National Association of Women Lawyers and the Iowa Organization of Women Attorneys award an Arabella Babb Mansfield Award each year in recognition of professional achievement, positive influence, and valuable contribution to women in the law and in society. The former on the national scale, the latter in Iowa alone. Today, we are honored to speak with Iowa Organization of Women Attorneys 2017 award recipient, Justice Linda Neuman. Thank you for joining me today, Justice Neuman. Before we get started, can you give us a little background on your path that led you to the Iowa Supreme Court?
Sure, Marissa. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and I attended the University of Colorado Law School, where I guess maybe to my surprise, I fell in love with an Iowan. And so when we graduated in 1973, his dad was the senior partner of a very old law firm in Davenport, Iowa. And he decided, this is my husband, Henry, decided that he wanted to practice law with his dad, or it'd be a nice opportunity. His dad was the senior partner and getting on in years. And so we moved back to Davenport, Iowa. And fortunately for me, and I didn't expect this, they really had plenty of work in the law firm and invited me to join the firm. And so we practiced together there, and ultimately I became the first woman partner in the law firm. And there really weren't any other women partners in law firms in Davenport, Iowa at that time. So anyway, but at the same time, the year I became a partner at the law firm, I was also pregnant with our first child, our first daughter. And so, after a couple of years, I thought it was a little bit of a struggle being a mother and a partner in a law firm. There weren't too many models for that at that time. This was in 1973, 74, 75, 76, 77. And so anyway, I had been doing largely transactional work, although I'd done some trial work with the really good trial lawyers in the firm. But I was doing mostly transactional work, so I was invited to be the head of a small trust department in Bettendorf, Iowa. And I did that for a couple of years, and it was fine. It was interesting and, good work, but I knew that wasn't where I really wanted to be. And there happened to be an opening, kind of an unexpected opening, for a part-time judicial magistrate position for Scott County. And so I decided to apply, and I happened to get the job. And so that kind of was the start of my judicial career. And I rather liked it. And a couple of years later, there was an opening on the district court. I really had just been working part-time, and I had our second child then, and I was teaching a law and social work class at the University of Iowa, Graduate School of Social Work. And but anyway, I applied for the position of a district court judge and happened to get that position. I was appointed by Governor Robert Ray. It was a 5-county judicial district in eastern Iowa. And sort of surprisingly, at that time, I was then only the second woman in the history of the state of Iowa to be a district court judge.
Wow.
But I really liked the work. So 4 years later, so I was a trial judge for 4 years. And so then 4 years later, there was an unexpected opening on the Iowa Supreme Court with the death of Harvey Uhlenhop. And again, really to my great surprise, I got a call from a couple members of the Supreme Court who said, Linda, you should apply for this position. And I'd gotten to know them, through committee work, through the Judges Association and various things, and the commissions that one might be on. And so I went ahead and applied, and there had never been a woman who'd made it through the Judicial Nominating Commission, the State Judicial Nominating Commission. And sure enough, I was one of 3 people on the slate that went to the governor. And in August of 1986, I was appointed to the Iowa Supreme Court, where I served for 17 years.
Wow.
So that's kind of the short story of how that happened.
That is amazing. So you've just mentioned you've worked as an attorney, a magistrate, a district court judge, and then finally Supreme Court justice. What were some aspects from each of those job duties that you enjoyed the most and helped kind of inform your path to the judiciary?
I think that the predominant thing is that I really enjoy working with people and really trying to understand what makes them tick, whether it's the lawyers or judges or the litigants. I'll never forget when I got the call from Judge Phelps in Davenport, Iowa, that I had been appointed by the Nominating Commission to be a part-time magistrate. He said, Linda, now the most important task that you will have will be to keep your cool while everyone around you is losing theirs. And, that turned out to be a pretty wise way to think about things day to day, particularly as a trial judge, for 6 years. And and particularly as a magistrate, you're really dealing with the public every day, and often they are not represented by counsel. And then in the district court, I really enjoyed the sheer variety of legal questions and issues and people, both lawyers and litigants, who, appear before you, and you were doing things from family law matters to first-degree murder trials and presiding at very complex civil litigation cases. And so I think just the sheer variety and challenge every day, not kind of knowing what was going to come up next as a trial judge was really the most enjoyable and challenging part of being a trial judge. And then as a member of the Supreme Court, it was very interesting because instead of kind of being in charge of your own ship, as you would say, as a trial judge, you're really sharing decision making with colleagues. And I always felt grateful that I was on the court at a time when the court was very collegial. And clearly we often had disagreements, important disagreements, over the outcomes of cases, but all of our disagreements were handled very professionally. And I would say we're really good friends. You know, we could disagree without being disagreeable. And I think for a long time, I missed the energy of the trial court. And I think most appellate judges who've been trial court judges probably share that same feeling, because being an appellate judge is a much more solitary sort of occupation. But it was also very intellectually challenging, and I really, really enjoyed my colleagues, and I enjoyed that decision-making by committee, frankly.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned previously that you were the first or second woman in a lot of spaces in Iowa's judicial branch. And this month we are talking about Arabella Mansfield, the first woman attorney in not only Iowa, but also our nation. And was she a figure that you learned about or looked up to at all when you were pursuing your own law degree?
No, certainly the University of Colorado in Boulder, Colorado, I'd never heard of Arabella Babb Mansfield. And interestingly, the American Bar Association has its award for outstanding women lawyers, and it's the Margaret Brent Award, named after and honoring a woman who practiced law, or at least appeared before courts, in Maryland in the 1600s. And so Arabella Mansfield was not on my, screen at all. Mm-hmm. But I was kind of honored to be a delegate from the University of Colorado when I was in law school to the first Women in Law conference held at Yale and law school. And there were amazing women from all over the country who were there. And that really opened my eyes to the breadth of gender discrimination. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until years later, when I was often asked to give speeches about Iowa legal history, that the importance of Arabella Babb Mansfield being admitted to practice law in Iowa was really part of a philosophy of the court, or a practice of the court and the people of Iowa to be more open in terms of civil rights issues. Mm-hmm. When you have the cases of Ralph and Clark versus the Muscatine School Board, and the public accommodations case, Koger case, and so forth. So I think the Mansfield decision or admission was really significant in that the bar examiners really promoted the idea that she should be admitted because she had the same ability and skill, and it really outdone her fellow law exam takers at that time. And I think the intriguing thing there is that the Iowa legislature then actually changed the law the following year to delete the words white male from the qualifications for sitting for the bar exam. So the fact that she was actually admitted to a state bar is so different from just representing people in court like Margaret Brent evidently did in the 1600s. Mm-hmm. The Mansfield situation really, it has to be compared to like Myra Bradwell in Illinois, who was not admitted to the Illinois bar because she was thought not to be qualified as a woman. In that case, of course, went to the U.S. Supreme Court and was affirmed at the time. So Iowa was really ahead of things in the 1800s in terms of recognizing the important diversity of people.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And your journey is also a first for Iowa, as you were the first woman Supreme Court justice in the history of the state. Did you ever originally imagine that your journey would end at the Iowa Supreme Court?
No, not at all. I had no concept that would be my ultimate position in the state. In fact, I always thought that my husband and I, living in Iowa, would always move back to Colorado, which was my home. Mm-hmm. But the legal profession was really good to me and to Henry, and we had wonderful career there. I should say that I did some teaching at the University of Iowa after I retired from the court, and I was always a little surprised at the law students who would say they hoped or even planned to be a judge sometime in their career. And I always told them that it really requires not only experience and intelligence and hard work, but the respect of your colleagues at the bar, because, if you aren't a good colleague among the members of your local bar association, they can torpedo any interest you have in becoming a judge pretty swiftly. So it's gaining the respect of your colleagues, I think, that really makes a difference there.
Right. And then did you feel any added pressure or scrutiny sitting on the bench as the first woman to fill that role in Iowa at all during your time?
Oh, absolutely. Marissa, and I think it's the same is true for anyone who's kind of the first, mm-hmm. Whether of their gender or race or sexual orientation. You really do carry an extra burden. You want to live up to the confidence shown in you, and you don't want to disappoint people. But you can't possibly represent an entire demographic. You have to be yourself and draw on your own strengths. But being at the table, that's historically dominated, for example, by white middle-aged men, mm-hmm. is really important because of the perspective you bring, giving voice to those who aren't around the table. And I think we see that more and more. I was thinking recently, I saw an interview with a Navajo leader who was remarking that Secretary Holland, the first woman and Native American to be the head of the Interior Department, he had great expectations for what she was going to do on behalf of the tribal nations in this country. And I thought to myself, well, she's going to do the best she can. Mm-hmm. But that's a big job to represent a whole demographic like mm-hmm. that. So I wish her well. And that's the experience, to a certain extent, that I have. It can't move you every day. You just can't be worried about that. You've got more things to be concerned about. And a lot of the work that you do, isn't so much gender oriented. Mm-hmm. But there are times when it's really important to bring that perspective. And I felt it was for me on the court.
Right. In 2017, you were awarded the Arabella Mansfield Award here in Iowa, which was established in 2002. What did receiving that award mean to you?
Well, of course, it's a great honor, but largely because I so respected and admired the women lawyers who'd been recognized before me. And, they didn't always have as public a position as I did, but they were making a difference in the way women were not only accepted, but had really excelled in a very male-dominated field. When I look at the list of women who had won the Arabella, or had been honored by the Arabella Babb Mansfield Award since it was started, and also the Gertrude Rush Award in Iowa. I mean, it is a remarkable list of women lawyers and judges. They're just all amazing and influential women in their fields. And because of their work to diversify the legal profession, I think, and especially as judges, to make the judiciary more representative of the people it governs.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Justice Neuman. I appreciate having the chance to speak with you.
You're welcome, Marissa. It's my pleasure and honor to be asked.
You've been listening to In the Balance, an Iowa Judicial Branch podcast hosted and produced by me, Marissa Gaal. If you would like more information about Iowa's courts, you can visit www.iowacourts.gov. You can also follow the Iowa Judicial Branch on Twitter and YouTube at Iowa Courts. This episode of In the Balance is now adjourned. Until next time.